Welcome to Lean by Design podcast. I'm your host, Oscar Gonzalez, alongside my co-host, Lawrence Wong. We are former MBA classmates turned business partners with over 25 years of combined experience in life sciences. From R&D through manufacturing, our experiences have shed light into the complex, ever-changing challenges experienced by this industry and many others. We took a risk, quit our six-figure paying jobs in Boston, biotech, and pharma to start Sigma Lab Consulting. Journey with us as we explore the relationship between people and workflow design. The goal? To learn, inspire, and deliver practical tips to navigate these ever-changing challenges. Stick with us and learn to work smarter, not harder, and be lean by design. Welcome to an episode of Lean by Design podcast. I'm your host, Oscar Gonzalez. And for the last planned time, I am here with my co-host, partner, Lawrence Wong. This is a very different episode. Recently, we've been leading with problems and discussing what those look like in an organization. But today, we're going to talk about the partnership that we've had. Our relationship has started back in 2020 when we were in grad school, right before we knew the world was going to shut down.
COVID.
Yes. And it really shut down. I mean, in the middle of our course, I believe it was called Starting New Ventures. All of a sudden, we got an email that we were going fully virtual. So that was an interesting way to start a business.
That was over 6 years ago.
That was over 6 years ago. It's crazy. Yeah. We've been on this grind for a little while. I mean, we've been, going from one thing to the other, building assets and building rapport and getting clients and having conversations with so many, not just practitioners, but people in the industry over the last 6 years. And, it's been really a journey that I don't think either one of us saw what it was going to look like 5 or 6 years later. So let's go. We're going to go back to those grad school days. Now, for those of you that are listening, Lawrence has no idea what I'm going to ask him. So this is unscripted. Usually we have notes. We're, trying to compare perspectives, but we're just going to hit Lawrence with a few questions and get to know him and sort of this partnership and this relationship so that you guys can see where we're coming from. But if you were listening to our last episode, this is Lawrence's last recording with us. He will be taking some time. You'll be moving. You actually have to go to the airport to pick up some family today. You'll be moving and, spending sort of like a mini sabbatical. And that's such a great idea, I think, at this point in your life. Who says you have to wait till you're 50 or 60 to take a sabbatical right before you're going to retire? So, I think, and we'll get into some of those things. We're going to start early on. What was that first impression in grad school? Do you remember that first class that we were in?
I think I remember like little details, and sometimes I have to listen to like the first or couple episodes that we recorded because this is the first time that we're actually doing this like in person. But it was like, basically, you come up with an idea of like a company that you'd like to start, and then the professor essentially paired us with people.
It was a prompt, right?
Yeah, it was like some sort of
prompt. Had to pitch.
You had to pitch, and then I believe it was 4 of us in the same group. I don't think there was anybody else that was in our group. But the initial idea was around non-scientific activities for like labs, so providing those sorts of services, and then we were working on it in class, and then COVID hit, and then we were doing it at home. School ended, and then I think everybody was home, probably drinking way more than we should have, and just, I think,
living the dream.
Yeah, living the dream, and then we would work on it sporadically. I don't think it was like there was like a cadence to it. It was more of, okay, let's just meet at this time, and then we would just talk about things and kind of go through the steps and following essentially like what we had learned in class to build a business of that type.
And we didn't know each other before that class. We knew similar people, but I don't recall being in a class with you before that specific course?
No, because like I was in the
You were moving quick.
I was in the health sector like management
That's right.
cohort, so we were like there was a core group of people that would take all these classes together. But that was like the last semester, and like all the electives were kind of essentially out of the way, and I think that may have been like one of the electives that I took, and like all the core classes were done.
I had a whole year after that to go. So that was, let's start a business, and at the same time, but we have to go slow because I'm still working and I have class for the next year.
And there's COVID.
Yeah, so we don't even know what we're going to do here or how this is going to work. It's interesting. I remember a lot of different points in that day. I mean, I was coming to class after work. So in some cases, I was one of the last people that were in there. And, if you can picture sort of stadium seating, each half circle row, each semicircle row sort of elevating from before that. I was coming in from the side door, sitting in that first chair. And I remember the professor saying, okay, why don't we start over here? And he points at me to pitch a company, to pitch a business. And this was the first class. And the first business I pitched was my idea for a brewery that served Puerto Rican food. And then the next person, I think, wanted to like save the dolphins or something. And then I saw this theme of like, oh, everybody is throwing out the biggest business they had thought about. Oops. So when we came to team up with people, I had to go back and say, okay, well, this is actually what I'm looking to do. This is what we were thinking about doing. And it was 4 of us. It seemed that a lot of folks in that class were like teaming up with people they already knew. They like business ideas, venture ideas. And I believe like towards the end, we all just sort of looked at each other and saw that we were all within the biopharma space. And we were just like, hey, do you guys want to be friends for the next semester?
Yeah. I don't even remember what my idea was so bad that I don't remember it. Like there was
You don't remember?
I remember the most ridiculous, and I don't know if this is still a business, so sorry if I offend anybody, but I think there was somebody who like was focusing on making beds for dorms.
Yes.
And like,
I think
it was like Better Beds or something like that. I don't even know if that's still in existence, but I was just like, that's a business. Like,
there was one for dorms. And then I remember another one that was sort of this mattress cleaning that like, if they could go to hotels and grab mattresses and hit them with like UV or something like that. So there were definitely some interesting, I don't remember a majority of them. And I think it's because at the end, when we got virtual, we're not hearing it as much in the conversation. You have class and then you meet with your team for 45 minutes and discuss whatever.
Right.
But that class was really cool. I mean, was there anything that you took away from working with me on that project that made you have a certain perspective of if we went full business?
I mean, I think the idea has changed significantly since, the idea of providing these services to these labs, because you have these larger companies that already do all types of like a Thermo Fisher. There's like companies like that are large enough that provide like these like lab management services essentially. And I think the initial thought was like, okay, because of COVID, there's going to be obviously a huge demand over how do these areas continue to be supported, because there's just a ton of focus being on like, we need to figure out how to, discover this medicine, therapeutic, whatever you want to call it, for this disease that has essentially stopped the world, right? So there was a lot of money being poured into our space.
Right.
And so that idea, I think, like definitely had legs in it. I think we were just trying to figure out like, okay, well, how does that fit into what we do for work, but also how does that fit into the competitive landscape for like all these other companies that exist now?
Right. I recall being upset because our professor continued to refer to our business as staffing. And, even though it was sort of coming across as like, we're going to support their work, I always saw this vision of we're making their work better, but almost like we didn't have the language to crystallize that idea and to really sell it. But that course did give us a lot of tools from the founder perspective, like having an agreement and making sure that you're staying true to things. Because I felt like that was the hardest thing. That was the biggest thing that I noticed with you, is that when we were not in class anymore and we were sort of distributing homework to figure out what is the next thing we're going to do. Okay, everybody create user personas. And this was very early before AI was a thing, where now you can tell it what you're looking for and it can craft a user persona for you. We had to do these things by scratch. This is a 45-year-old director that works in here, and they work on these projects and they struggle to see what their team is actually doing because of XYZ. And you were one of the only people that did the homework. And that's why, that's ultimately what brought us down to having two founders, was we were ready to go in. Talk about what that was like for you and when you decided, because you were having a conversation with another fella about potentially working with him and starting a business, right?
Yeah. So we had there were some other people that I had talked to about essentially starting a business, providing so essentially maintenance services, right, to these different areas. That I think one of the trends that is still very prevalent to today is, I think there's a large amount of the workforce that is on the technician level, shop floor, that they're retiring in the next, let's say, 5 to 10 years. And so there's this huge skills gap between this new generation of technicians and essentially blue collar workers that are coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's an opportunity there where if you have a really, talented group of people that really know how to provide those sorts of services, you could potentially, target certain pockets of biopharma where that's like a significant need, right? So one of the areas is calibration.
Mm-hmm.
Very good example. You need instruments that are, to a specific accuracy and precision. And so there are certain standards that you need to test these instruments to. I don't think that's something that people go to school for. It's something that, like, I discovered even doing engineering.
Mm-hmm.
It was always like, we knew that was an important part of whatever manufacturing process you're a part of.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no course that says, oh, I'm going to be a calibration
Right.
technician. Like, there was none of that that I had found. And coming to the industry, I had, worked for a couple companies, and then I met some individuals that were really, really skilled at it. And I learned significantly by just being around them,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Mm-hmm.
over the course of being on projects and stuff. And so there was potential of starting a business with them. I think the problem there is when you try to start a company with people that you work with at a company, that there's just other priorities that people have. And
Right.
it becomes this thing where, like, this seems like a conflict of interest. And, like, maybe there's problems with that sort of model.
Yeah.
I think it was a lot easier for us because, like, we're not working in the same company.
Yeah.
We do very different things. And so there's not this, like, issue of, like,
We do things different from the company we were trying to build.
Exactly. Yeah. And the actual company that we're building, like, the work that you do day to day is not, it's not completely
you might use the same skills.
Yeah, but it's I think there's enough differentiation where it's not going to be an issue. And so I think for me, because we were classmates and then we understood, okay, these are the components that you would need to build a business. It was, I told those guys that I was working with, like, hey, I'm only going to focus on one thing at a time. And, like, chose to focus on, obviously, we needed to pass the class.
Yeah.
we were working.
We needed to graduate
already. So I think it was a very easy choice. But then I think after we finished the class, carrying that momentum, I think that became more difficult because it's not like there was some obligation, right? There was,
you don't have a paper to turn in, you don't have reports, you have to do it on your own.
You got to do it on your own. Yeah. Nobody is coming to save you. There's no professor saying, like, oh, you forgot to do X, Y, and Z. It's kind of this, like, okay, you have your own deadlines. You got to commit to this. If people aren't serious about this, then, don't do it.
Yeah.
Like, that's essentially what the message was.
I mean, I think that's a message that a lot of folks who are looking to get into entrepreneurship or to be solopreneurs, even, I know there's a lot of folks that are using their skill set and knowledge to, to continue to be consultants in the space. And there's really a core piece that I don't think is discussed enough. And that is that you have to bring that energy every day to push what that next piece is. No one gave us a playbook. No one told us do these 7 things and then clients are going to start coming in. And even when those conversations did come out, it's not doing them one time. It's doing them repeatedly, consistently, over time, consistently, going out and being your true self and representing the business and, finding, you have to find work. You have to find the work that you need to do. It's not just social media. It's making sure your voice is together, making sure that you are, hitting the major points that you want people to remember your organization by. When it comes to delivery, I know, in the early days of our business, you were very focused on the delivery. How are we delivering the best version of what we can do to these clients over and over and over again so that they want to continue working with us? Because ultimately, that's what's going to pay the bills are those repeat customers, not those people that take one project and then they leave. So absolutely, we learned quite a bit. Is there any habit that you had in grad school that has carried into your professional life?
I think reading is probably the biggest thing, right? So in business school, there's a lot of reading that you have to do because we have these case studies and you have to write papers and then you have to do presentations and all this stuff. And you have to be very comfortable with being able to communicate and be able to present things, and very useful for work, I think. And I think after graduating, I don't have to read case studies anymore. So you kind of have to force yourself to find things to read and find things that interest you and find things that will, that you can take from that can, obviously apply to the business. And at the same time, just, I think there's a lot of stuff that you can read online now that's, whether it's articles, on the computer, on your phone. But I still think that there's something about having some physical copy of something that you don't let your mind get distracted and you're able to process information in such a different way from reading like that. So I have a gigantic library that I've built from reading since COVID, because COVID was the thing that kind of forced me to okay, I don't have any case studies anymore. You're going to have to find things to read and to fill that gap. And that's probably the best habit that I've picked up is reading. Because I was reading before coming into business school, but they were mostly manuals on how to fix things. And it's not the type of reading that
doesn't really stimulate you.
It's not really stimulate you. It's kind of it's like you go to IKEA, you get a book and there's a picture.
It's very matter of fact too. Yeah. It's just this is what it is. This is what you do, as opposed to when you're reading a book or reading research or what have you. You are internalizing what that is telling you and then sort of developing your understanding of that document.
Yeah, and I think a lot of these books force you to also reflect on things, right? I can't reflect on a manual telling me how to take a pump. It just
should make you feel. I never want to build that again.
Yeah, this is not what I want to do. Yeah, I think that's the only thing that I've got out of it. There's certain books that you can take apart from, and there's a lot of stuff that's not related to work that I also picked up reading. So I think just having that habit of having something to read, to pick up, to separate your mind from all the distractions that we have today, I think helps a lot.
It's funny you mentioned that, because as I was getting these questions together, for me, it was coming up the studying. And when I say studying, it's doing the research on your own, not being prompted by something else. That was being able to go in and sort of scrape resources and understand what resources are available, and getting into these newsletters so that I can get the news that's happening at the top of the hour, to understand how the industry is moving, to query if we have to make a maneuver based on what's happening historically, right? In real time. And so I think, I have to agree with you. It sort of gives you that momentum that you don't want to lose. It's like going to the gym and then stopping for a few years and then saying you're going to go back and go every day. It's just like that, where we're in a place that the industry is really changing every 2 to 3 years. And that research muscle needs to continue to be worked on and flexed to understand what are the moves that you need to make from a business perspective. The stuff you had planned is not necessarily going to feed you in the next 3 years.
Yeah. And there's a lot has changed since COVID. A lot changed because of COVID, and then coming out of COVID, things changed. But then there's a lot of stuff that didn't change, and I think also the more that you read, the more that you consume, you can start to recognize certain patterns and things that are going to be forever, right? One of those things is coordinating projects with large amounts of people. Your AI is not going to help you with these difficult conversations that you have to have with these people in leadership and manage the gaps in your operation. Like that's just not a thing that is going to happen.
So let's jump into some fun things, work things. We'll see if we have some. I know we've spent a lot of time together in a lot of different areas. What's something that we did early on that was scrappy? We're like piecing it together to try to understand proof of concept.
I think there were, in the beginning, we did go to a lot of random events, I would say, and trying to like talk to people and kind of explain to them what we were doing. And I think
every networking event that ever was popped up and free.
Yeah, every networking event, and then it was free. I remember specifically there was one event where we went, it was downtown Boston somewhere. We went to the Bell in Hand, and like that was I forget what organization was holding that.
Is this where that guy tried to be an intern with us, like in the first month of us being official?
Yeah, he drank a lot of beers, I think, that night. There were a couple of people from biotech. There was a lawyer, an accountant. I think there was some random people that we had met. I think that was proof of concept in the way that we're talking about, the vision that we have, right?
Practice, absolutely.
And practice and being able to explain it in a way that somebody who is completely out of our industry would be able to understand. And I think we learned a lot from that, and it kind of let us know the types of people that go to certain events and things that we should be maybe more targeted towards. And I think that definitely was, because you have to commit, right? Time wise, like being able to, you're not just showing up and doing nothing. You're showing up and then having conversations with random people about what you're trying to do. So I think that was very scrappy, and like money wise, I don't think that was really much because you're maybe buying a couple drinks and some food. But and I think the biggest thing was the time and just showing up and just being yourself and being able to talk about what you're trying to do. Is hard.
The networking was sort of scrappy because I think we had to change our lens of how are we going into this event, how are we presenting ourselves, and even now I have a whole new plan for networking in this fall because I have different motives than before. I think before we just wanted to talk to people and little seeds of this is what we do, this is who we are, maybe meet a couple people that are in different industries that might be able to support the work that we're doing. And we got a lot of different responses in different places. And one of the things that I recognize too is that these networking events that are not necessarily industry focused, that might not be the ideal clientele, but it allowed us to flex that in practice. This is what we were doing. This is who we are. It's, and it was prompting a lot of conversations. I think what was universal was outside of the different industries, people felt the pain that we were talking about resolving. So that in and of itself, I think was, there was some value in there to say, okay, well, there's problems that everyone is facing, not just in biopharma.
Yeah.
Let's go into a little bit of the partnership, because I'm seeing some of these other questions I put out and I don't like them. So let's talk about the partnership. If you had to, now this might be hard because I know I watch a lot more movies than you do, but if you had to create a movie character or had to pick a movie character for how I tend to work, can you come up with that?
Incredibly difficult. Or
I should say, what is a takeaway of my working style?
We'll be right back after a quick break. In biopharma, success isn't just about innovation. It's about connection. Between systems and teams, between data and decisions, between goals and the people driving them. At Sigma Lab Consulting, we call this the biopharma nexus, the network of relationships that hold your organization together and keeps progress moving. When those connections align, teams work with clarity, speed, and confidence. When they don't, workflows slow down, decisions take longer, and effort gets lost. We help life science organizations simplify how work gets done by strengthening the connections between people, processes, and technology so that your team can make better decisions and move faster with less friction. If you're ready to reduce complexity and restore flow, start with a risk check at sigmalabconsulting.com and start simplifying how work gets done.
I think the movie character. So the other thing I can think of is like most characters I know are going to come from the Marvel universe. Like there's no I don't have any perception of.
I could be a superhero.
All these, and I think more. The first thing that pops in my mind is it's like a little bit of Tony Stark, but then a little bit of Bruce Banner, like kind of like mixed into because Bruce Banner is more like sciencey, and I think Tony's more building hardware and things like that, but very vocal about things, right? And I think there's a mixture of that, right? I think working style wise, I think we come from very different backgrounds. Like you came from the R&D, like the very early stages of like drug development. I'm on the other end, which is like we just need to make this stuff and get it out the door. So I think there's a different like lens in which you see science unfold versus like for me, it's like we just got to reproduce this recipe every single time.
How do we execute with consistency?
Right. So there's a very defined process for how things are done. And I think for me, looking at how like the way that we approach our work, efficiency and that sort of context is more of like connecting the pieces that we already know it's defined, right? It's just connecting these things so that they flow better. I think in the work that you do, those pieces aren't defined. It's kind of a mess, right? And so you're going to have to
define it.
You have to define what those things are, which makes it a little bit more different. So efficiency is really people communicating what is it that you need for your work to continue for the next person to do their job. There's some overlap, but I think for the most part, that process is you like being defined as the work is being done. Whereas here, it's the work is defined. We just need to be able to get this done like efficiently in the flow, right? Now, aside from that, I think working style wise is like I think I think prefer to have a lot of I think smaller projects. It's kind of like research, right? You're trying to do things and you're trying to figure out what things hit. And I've told you this multiple times. I can only do one thing at a time, and like that's in my mind. Like I can't multitask. This is, I think, I think you're the opposite. Where like you're like great at multitasking.
Pros and cons. Pros and cons for sure.
So I don't even try. I'm just like I can do one thing at a time. That's it.
So you might be like Spider-Man or Ant-Man. Like, let me know what you guys need me to do or who I need to battle, and then send me over there and I'll do it.
I mean, if I had to say like what character my favorite character is Winter Soldier. No superpowers, like just got this incredible arm. And I just like go into the night and just assassinate people. It's like it's an amazing like backstory behind it, and then he becomes a hero, and then obviously I don't know the full extent of like how he becomes. I think maybe there's some timeline where he becomes Captain America and stuff like that, but for the most part, it's this regular dude who gets injected with something, becomes evil, and then helps the rest of the Marvel universe.
Rest assured, Lawrence is anything but evil. I don't know if I've seen him kill a fly. I've killed like 3 mosquitoes already today. Cool. All right. Well, that's a new one for me. I appreciate that. Is there a hill that I will absolutely die on, and you just said, okay, that's Oscar?
Easy. Smartsheet, obviously. I think like your tool of choice. I think the world can be completely managed using one application. I think in your mind you're like, yeah, we can totally do everything like using. If the government was run by Smartsheet, we'd be in a much better place. I think I'm a little different where I'm like, okay, I could use this for this. I could use this for the like. I take bits and pieces of things, and I'm like, okay, if you're trying to do this, it works way better using this. But I think for you, you're like, oh, we can do everything using this because you have such a deep understanding of all the capabilities, things that Smartsheet can do.
That was that's a good one.
Yeah.
This is not a paid endorsement by Smartsheet by any means.
But he would love to get endorsement.
Yeah. Give me a call, guys. What is the most Oscar thing that I've done?
Oscar thing. That's a difficult question. I can keep going back to Smartsheet, but I think like if we pulled up the tech stack that we have, I think we have you're very organized in that sense, and I think never in a million years would I have thought to like build a whole sheet of like, these are all the applications that we use. This is what we use it for. Here are the links. Here are the like. I think you're incredibly organized in like how we separate things, and you can see that in our Google Drive. Like everything is very specific. I think if you looked at my folder, it's just like one folder with my name on it, and I just dump a bunch of stuff in there, but I know exactly where things are.
Yeah.
I think you're a little different where like you kind of you're organized in that way. Like it's like organized chaos, I guess, is like the only thing that I can say.
I appreciate that so much. It gives me a lot of pleasure to actively know where things are. And I think that's something that we try to, at least when I'm talking with my clients, I try to continue to go back with like that. You have to sort of groom and curate the spaces that you have, because one of the easiest wastes to remove is wasted time looking for things, wasted time recreating things because you couldn't find them in the right place. The hard part is that not everybody thinks of labels the same way you do in any setting, not just me, you, and everybody else. So I think that can always be tricky, but yeah, I think when we started this business, I had this idea of making sure that everything was transferable. I didn't know when new people were going to come in. I didn't know when assistants were going to come in, but I wanted to have things set up where when somebody comes in, okay, here's this first level, here's this second level, now here's the document. It's definitely something that I get so much pleasure out of things being organized in certain ways. Interesting take there. So now we're up to the speed round.
Yeah.
Early meetings or late nights?
Early meetings.
Slides or spreadsheets or something else?
I actually prefer meetings. Like I prefer like meetings like this.
Live.
I prefer not having any slides. if I could have meetings with no documents and no slides, that'd be great. But the problem is, I think depending on the meeting itself, like whatever you're trying to do, it helps to have graphics if you're trying to convey information. Yep. But for the most part, a lot of the issues that we have at work have nothing to do with those things. It's more of like this person is clearly not communicating well to another person, and it's just kind of resolving that miscommunication and alignment between the two.
Coffee or tea?
Oh, because it's coffee. Yeah, that's an easy one.
How many coffees do you do typically in a day?
Just two.
Just two?
Just two, yeah.
Are they planned?
Yeah. Okay. Probably like an hour after I wake up, and then our like probably lunchtime, I think, is like the next one around that time. And then if I'm really feeling it, then probably like 3 p.m.
Here's a hack I recently heard. If you drink a cup of coffee before you take a power nap, when you wake up from that 15, 20-minute nap, the caffeine hits you at the same time, and you end up getting this like sustained boost of energy because you had the coffee before you took a nap.
I can't take naps. This is like, if I take a nap, I'm out. Like that's just I can't do that.
That's too funny. So what's the proudest thing you can think of about this 6 year?
I think biggest like proudest moment, I think, of the company itself. That's a good one. I think when we actually built the product, we had always, again, from the very beginning, it was very like service based and
standard consulting,
right? And I don't think we ever thought about creating a product as an option. And then we kind of went through this conversation of like, this idea of having these like drops and the highs and lows of invoicing and billing, and there's just a lot of uncertainty around that. And so the idea was having a product where you could have this passive income essentially that would come from having these things available for people to purchase if they wanted to. And I think that kind of changed our mindset from developing a service to product management, which is a completely different skill set that you need, right? Because there's a lot of things that you need to take care of as far as like, okay, what tools are we using? How are we going to troubleshoot this thing? What's the support around it? Like, what are what's the workflow? Like there's
their entry,
the onboarding, what they're seeing, and then having consistency for every single, product that you deliver.
Right.
Yeah,
absolutely. What are you most excited about next? And what's the first thing that you're going to sort of bring in with the free time that you have?
First thing I'm doing is I'm moving. And I think just because I've lived in Massachusetts since 2008. So it's going to be.
How old were you when you moved to Boston?
I was 17.
Wow.
Yeah. 17. Yep. So
that's a stretch.
I've lived more than half my life in this state. And now I'm not moving home, significantly closer to home, which is New York. I think this just that this chapter of my life coming to a close and then opening up a new one. My parents are aging, right? Thinking about being there for my sister. I'm excited to be in a new place, but also kind of be around them because I haven't been around them in a long time.
So this podcast we came up with a few years ago, and I would push it to say that this idea came from you, from how much you were gaining from listening to other experts in the industry and podcasts. And that was such an easy sell to me. Let's start a podcast. Let's put things out there and continue to have these conversations that are not being spoken about, even in the workplace. These other issues that are underlying the symptoms that we're facing. So, I think that we've been able to really provide a view and a soundboard for people that probably feel like alone. What's one thing that you hope to feel if we have Lean by Design in 5 years and you're catching an episode? How do you hope to feel about it?
Yeah, I think the conversations around these areas that you talked about, right? So stuff that clearly isn't working out at where you work, but for some reason we don't really address them or talk about them in some way. Yeah. I think that's really important to continue kind of like diving into specifics around, obviously the biotech and just biopharma industry, because there's a lot of nuance specifically with this industry versus the other ones. And I think at the same time, maybe having more, being able to have other people that also experience this kind of speak on this, right? Because I think still to this day, people are obviously hesitant about talking about these things because they you don't want it to come back on them. And there's sort of this wall that people have. I think people outside the industry are much more willing to talk about these things, very open with it. Yeah. So I think maybe one of the possibilities is having people that are also vendors or suppliers that help the industry, right, to talk about this. Because I mean, it would be awesome if you could talk to somebody at Smartsheet and then ask them okay, how do you see the industry using this, your application and your tool for, the work that they do and how they manage projects at their company. And I think also having some of more of yourself in it, right? I think being able to communicate freely. I know people listening to the first episode versus this one now, where the tone and everything is completely different because we've definitely changed over the years. And if we're not cringing at the thought of listening to the early episodes, I think that we haven't grown, right? And
I love that perspective, and it's something that we fail to acknowledge at times. And if you're not looking back at those moments and evolving from them, you're not growing. And that's ultimately what we try to do is grow as humans, grow as partners, grow as business owners, to make sure that we're delivering the right version of us in our vision to the masses. So, Lawrence, is there anything else you want to leave us with?
I think maybe just a question for you. What are you most excited about with doing not only, stuff with the podcast, but also with the business? What are your hopes and what are you looking forward to for not just this year, but beyond?
I think I'm looking forward to connecting with people more. I think in these last couple of years since we were in grad school, and my oldest is 5 years old. So there has been this need to stay home and be more of the parent and not taking all these conferences, not taking all these opportunities to go talk to people. And I sort of left that for you in a sense. And I'm recognizing that there is a role for me out there. And so I think in practicing and planning my upcoming, events and networking, I feel very positive about the conversations that I'm expecting to have and start to develop other kinds of partnerships that I didn't really see before. And a lot of different businesses have come forth curious about doing partnerships and finding out what that means and finding out how to structure those things. I mean, these are all more growth initiatives for Sigma Lab Consulting. What we are going to see is some differences in the podcast. In the more immediate, we will do more solo episodes. They might be a little bit shorter, but we're going to stay within that same stream. What's really most exciting is that I don't know what's going to happen. And it could really be anything. I mean, it could be beautiful. Who knows? We could sell our assets with our product or something. I don't know. We could grow to, 40, 50 people. I don't know. But I have folks like you that have helped challenge my thinking and make sure that I'm considering different perspectives and not just getting a really firm idea and sticking with it and just running. Above all, I'm going to enjoy my kids growing up. I think we have fantastic opportunity to continue to push Sigma Lab Consulting into new spaces. So we're going to explore things like that. Even outside of biopharma, we know that folks are having these challenges. They're struggling when a major change happens at an organization and it's just rocky and they can't figure out why. I think this is a new chapter for the both of us. Like now we're actually recording from my office, and this is a dream space that I would never have expected. So in a lot of this, I have to give thanks to you for the partnership, for the camaraderie. I'm going to miss our strategy weekends where we got to really bond and just hammer every conceivable direction and come out with something really beautiful, really refined our thinking and really gave us an opportunity to continue to grow the organization. When you're trying to differentiate from big players like McKinsey and EY and PwC, these other large consulting firms, it can be very challenging. And I think that we set ourselves up really well to be those differentiators. So thank you for helping develop this beautiful organization. And without your additional support and suggestion, Predictably Broken may have never been written.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and it's been fun. I think there's going to be a lot of good that's going to happen in the next couple of months and years that are ahead, and I think we're both growing as a result of this too. It's not going to be easy, but I think that's the choice that we make, right?
Yeah.
Like we're not I think at this stage in our life and career, whatever it is, things you get to pick your own problems, I think.
Yeah.
And like where you decide where you want to take the business, and then I'm gonna figure out what my life is going to look like being close to home and setting boundaries. Like there's a lot of things that,
and then you'll get Lawrence, thank you for coming by and spending time with us today. All of our listeners, thank you for listening. 3 seasons so far. We are going to have a brief break before coming back at the end of September to round out season 3. And those last few episodes, we're going to dig into Predictably Broken, which is on virtual bookshelves. It is on it's Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and a number of indie bookstores. I'm really have a conversation with you directly on the issues and the challenges you see, and let's cut through it, call it for what it is, and fix it to make our operations better day in and day out. And if you're ready to have that conversation, we also have our operational risk assessments that are completely open, available. Take a look at it. You can go to our website, sigmalabconsulting.com/assessments to take a look. And if you're ready to take that next step, you can also go to sigmalabconsulting.com/check to have a risk check done, and we can have a conversation. No strings attached, no contract. We just have a conversation on the challenges that you're facing and see what might be the right course of action from you from the perspective we've built together over these last number of years. So thank you all so much. Don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn, follow us on Instagram, and Lawrence.
Yeah, LinkedIn.
Find Lawrence on LinkedIn, connect with him, Don't let them get too far. Thank you guys for joining us. Thanks, Lawrence. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to leave us a review, like, and share on Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're interested in being on the show or becoming a sponsor, send us a message at leanbydesign@sigmalabconsulting.com.